Hey everybody, it's Michael here, and it is a beautiful sunshine day in State College. This doesn't happen very often lately. I'm really excited, so I'm wearing my sunglasses in honor of the fact that we actually have sunshine today. And I hope the sun is shining wherever you are too, and that you have a chance to enjoy it. Unless you don't like the sunshine, then hopefully you're somewhere cloudy. But I do like the sunshine, and it's great to have some shining through my window today. And I'll tell you what, it's a really exciting time in our class because we are moving right along at a rapid pace through some of the most challenging material that I think we're going to face all semester. And that's been talking about population change and why it's important. Now, why might population change be important? Well, as you probably noticed from your Module 4 assignment, there are different assumptions that we have to make about how populations are going to change. They're like educated guesses. And which one you use depends on what's been happening in the past and what you think is going to happen in the future. Right? So we have these linear extrapolation techniques that assume that things are always going to grow at the same rate that they have in the past. Could be a good assumption, could be a bad assumption. Maybe it's not growing, maybe it's declining. Maybe we actually have systemic decline in a community, and we think it's going to continue to go down at the same rate until we hit zero. It could be 100 years in the future. We also talked about geometric growth rates. What are those? Well, that's what happens when we think that the population is going to balloon or it's going to go starkly downward. You know, that's if we put a negative sign in front. It's going to go, you're going to have a curve kind of like this, where all of a sudden everybody is leaving the community en masse. Maybe they just really don't like it there anymore. That makes an assumption that we think that the population is going to change, it's going to accelerate in terms of its growth rate over time. And we're going to have a boom town, or we're going to have a bust town over time. We also talked a little less so, about exponential rates, which is, logarithmic rates of growth. That's where we think that it's going to grow quickly over a period of time and slowly kind of level out towards an equilibrium point. Or it's going to decline quickly and then sort of slowly level out. It's almost like the opposite of the geometric rate, right? And then we had this thing called the cohort component method, where we said, barring any change in migration, and that's the key, no migration, we're just looking at who's there, we're going to take a look at what the birth and death rates have been, and we can expect them to remain relatively consistent into the future, and get a nice conservative estimate. Well, which one we choose, as you probably saw, has a big, big effect on what the outcomes of the exercise are, for sure. If you have an exponential growth and you think things are going to grow exponentially, you're going to end up with a much higher estimate than if you use the much more conservative cohort component method, where you're looking at literally what the births and deaths are going to be over time. I believe in this past exercise we had the difference between looking at the geometric rate and the cohort component method was something like close to 100,000 people. I think it was around 90,000 people. That's a big difference. 90,000 people is a lot of people over a 10-year period. So you can see how the variation affects the kinds of predictions that you're going to make. What's the key here? Make sure that you're making educated guesses, and don't just sort of throw these things out there. Every single method that you use is a tool that can be used to get sort of a better estimate of what's going to happen in the future, and you have to really use your intuition. So, for example, if you have a city like Las Vegas, it might make sense to have really, really fast growth ballooning off the charts if you know it's a period of fast growth in the past and it's likely to continue. However, what happened in Las Vegas in the past 5 years or so? There was a housing bust, right? So maybe if we're predicting based on 2008 roughly data, we think that there's going to be some sort of a leveling off effect, or even maybe some sort of a decline. Those guesses that we make about population change in the future are based on our physical experiences in the past. And your job as a practitioner is to make very good educated guesses and to apply the correct tool at the right time. So you have to be very intuitive in understanding how your city is changing, not just looking at the numbers and saying, well, that's what the numbers say. Of course they do, but really understanding what they mean and how you got there is what's really critical. And that was the point of the Module 4 exercise. You can see the differences in these outcomes over time. The Module 3 exercise, much the same. You could see how basic, simple growth rates work. And of course, one of the other big points here was that I wanted you to become more familiar with using the U.S. Census data. This is really important because the census measures all kinds of stuff. They measure population, they measure different subsectors in terms of ethnicity and nationality and immigration and how much people commute to work and what industries they work in and business growth and different kinds of all sorts of different things. Pretty much anything that relates to a community and specifically the people within that community. Can be found either in the census or in the economic census, and oftentimes they're tied together. They take little attributes and tables from each one and they put them together when you look at community profiles. So it's very interesting stuff. And hopefully you feel a little more comfortable using it. Now, we're going to apply it in a unique way. In Module 5, you understand that we're trying to put together a demographic PowerPoint presentation. And that's going to be really exciting because what I want you to do is to utilize this data and not only tell me about your community, but it's like you're really making a genuine presentation to a client. And you're going to tell me a bit about how this community is going to change. And of course, you need to support those assertions with the right kinds of measurements, right? So by understanding and making guesses about where the city's been, you can kind of choose the right tools to understand where it's going. You might look at multiple tools and compare them. So you might take a look at a straight line analysis and a cohort component analysis, or a straight line analysis and maybe something exponential. You think it's going to level off. That's very interesting. But support those arguments in understanding why that may or may not be the case. That's extremely critical. So, anyhow, moving forward, I want you to think big on the Module 5 assignment. Sky's the limit. Make it creative. Make it interesting. Make it fun. Convince your audience. And remember, this is client-oriented work, so it should look very professional. It should look like you're really going to... You should be able to basically walk out the door and present this to the community that you're talking about and have it be a meaningful and very good presentation, one that's very useful, and one that they would find useful. I don't think that'll be any problem for you guys. You've been doing really, really well. Just some orders of business here. As we go through the class, we're going to talk a little bit more about how changes in population also affect land use and municipal finance. It's a big deal, right? So, if you have a growing population, what does that mean? Well, it means you have a lot more tax revenue. It means you have a lot more talent entering the community. But who comes into the community is also important, too. I mean, you might be gaining high-income people or low-income people. People who are young and just entering the workforce, or people who are retired and who have left the workforce already. This has a distorting effect on what that population change is going to do to your community. Oftentimes we talk about brain drain in rural areas. You have young people that leave the community and they go and they move to the city and they earn some money and they make a career for themselves there, and they might find a spouse and get married and have kids, or who knows, or maybe they don't find a spouse or whatever. No problem. They live their lives, and then some of them actually come back. It's called return migration. When they want to raise their children or when they get a little bit older, they come back to the types of communities that they were in before. So there's this real youth brain drain that leaves the community, and oftentimes many retirees coming back in, or people that have families with school-age kids. That can affect the circumstances, because if you think that these different groups pay different taxes, they earn different amounts of money, they require different jobs, and they bring different skills to the area. So we'll be talking a lot more about that. In terms of course business, I think everything's moving along fine. I should have grading caught up pretty soon, hopefully today, maybe tomorrow if it just things get too challenging today. I've got a lot of work ahead of me, but as do you. I should have all the grades updated and in the system pretty soon. And I'm going to give another round of feedback on your journal entries. The idea is that you hear from me less and less throughout the class and start to get your own footing and deriving your own confidence. As you start to get on track, feel confident. I'll still check in from time to time, and you'll be hearing from me down the road. But I'd like to go back and kind of just reassess how those things are going. And of course, if you have any questions about the course, feel free to contact me. I'll get back to you just as soon as I possibly can. In the meantime, get out there. If you're in a sunny area, enjoy that sunshine. I got to stay in my office a little longer, but as soon as I get out of here, I'm at least going for a walk and just having a good time out there. So be sure to get out there and enjoy yourselves today. I look forward to seeing you online. Hope you're all doing real well. Take care.